identify with his mood swings. Interview Mr. Peterson. I've never really done an interview like this. I'm not sure what to expect, so I ask you to bear with me. I'm new here. But I would like to introduce you all to a man who is the Congressional Challenger for this district in 2014, and he's the man who taught me what has become my favorite campaign slogan: ask not what your government can do for you. Tell them what they can do for you. This is the man who said, ask not what your government can do for you, tell them what they can do for you. And any man with a campaign slogan like that's a man I want to meet. Please welcome Congressional candidate, David Peterson. Hello, sir.
John,
Thank you very much. How are you?
Good to meet you.
Now, why are you giving me campaign propaganda as soon as you walk on stage?
Yes, it's important. You should take election material from strangers. There may be something in here that you don't know, something that you could learn from, valuable information.
I'm an American voter. I'm already omniscient, but thank you. Have a seat, please.
Wait.
Oh.
If it'll stay. An ornament for your tree.
Very nice. So welcome to our performance of Behind a Noble Fur. This is going to be the hottest new web show, Behind a Noble Fur. It's a very original concept, and thank you for being here.
Very majestic.
Let me begin by asking you this. You want to take the profit out of war profiteering.
Yes.
Doesn't that take all the fun out of it?
Yes, I guess it would, but it's serious. It's an important first step.
Now, some would say we're not at war right now, so what do you mean when you say we want to take the profit out of war profiteering?
Oh, we're making a lot of money from war right now. We're definitely at war.
Well, we're not making a lot of money.
Americans are making a lot of money.
Tell me.
A few Americans are making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. And how so?
Selling weapons, selling services related to war.
Are you unhappy that the war profiteers make their money whether we have a war or not?
Well, I guess that's part of the paradigm that we're stuck in. I mean, it's something that the president's wrestling with right now. He's got two wars that he's trying to wind down from, both Afghanistan and Iraq. And as he does try and wind down from those wars, he's got 435 Congress members in his face demanding that they not cut anything from their district because they're going to lose jobs.
So the war profiteers make their money whether we pillage oil or not, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now, Bloomberg Financial reports that at this point, and this shocked me, that war profiteers are in 2014 making more money than Wall Street banksters. How do the banksters feel about this?
Oh, they're really mad. Typically, they make more money in a war.
Is this everything Eisenhower warned us about?
Exactly. It's exactly what he warned us about.
Why have you made war profiteering one of the central issues of your campaign?
Well, I guess it grows away from years of campaigning with the Peace Alliance and Congressmember Dennis Kucinich, who spearheaded the legislation to create the United States.
I'm going to clap for Dennis Kucinich, please.
So he wanted to create the United States Department of Peace and Nonviolence. Great idea, 2% of the defense budget to be spent on peace initiatives. Ronald Reagan signed a slice of that into law back in the 80s, and that created the United States Peace Institute. So since then, the balance of the legislation has been stuck, can't get through committee, but it's huge. It's really important. It would be valuable, but it doesn't sell well. So we kind of got together with some MBA types, trained corporate capitalist folks that run the Fortune 500 companies, and we said, well, okay, if you want to slice up the pie differently, what would you do? And how would you make sense of this without increasing costs? And so this is just slicing a little bit of the costs out. Actually, after we finish the draft legislation, it turns out to be $400 billion a year, but it's a lot of money after all. But it only takes out executive compensation. So if you're Sikorsky Helicopters and you're selling helicopters to the military and you're making tons of money and you want to buy a new yacht, no problem. Well, we want to take that out. Skip the new yacht, skip the private island. You have to make all your money as chief executive officer from the private sector. And we'll take out the NASCAR sponsorships, we'll take out the strip clubs, we'll take out the alcohol, all of which is illegal if you're a government employee, but if you're a government contractor, it's perfectly legal.
You are running on the platform of completely defunding the NSA domestic spying program.
We should, absolutely. It's a separate program, but it's a huge waste of money. This is the industry I work in, myself, Edward Snowden, many others. And the first rule of any computer application system that you build is don't replicate your data unless you need to. So that's what they're doing. They're going out to AT&T and Verizon for all of our phone calls. They're going to Google for all of the search information, Facebook, Twitter for all our tweets and chats.
Well, President Obama says that he's not looking at our tweets or our emails or our chats.
Of course not. I mean, there's 300 million of us. He doesn't have time to look at them all. I mean, it took me 3 weeks just to review your material online before you came out.
Well, that's because you're counting the gay porn, but yes. Well, I actually wrote to the NSA to complain about the domestic spying, and they told me they already knew how I felt about it. It seems like that's a really popular issue for a congressional challenger to run on. But I think, don't you get a lot of people just believing that this is the new normal, that the only way to have privacy anymore is to be on a Malaysian airline or somewhere?
Yeah, they're never going to find them, are they? Hopefully they will, and hopefully they'll find them alive and well and living in north of Delhi.
It'd be very nice, but I think one of the reasons people are so surprised and so engaged with the story is they're shocked that many people can disappear in the age of the national security state and all the surveillance we have. What kind of pushback do you get? Do you think that America's ready to get behind a platform of defunding domestic spying?
Oh, absolutely. San Francisco voters are supportive of it. It's more along the lines of I don't care, or it doesn't mean anything to me. And then there's a few that say, oh yeah, violation of my Fourth Amendment. I don't want anybody seeing those photos that shouldn't. I don't want anybody monitoring my phone calls. But if you take the folks that really don't care and you mention the fact that if they look at their paycheck stub and they slide down to the largest deduction that comes out of their paycheck stub, that localizes it for them. If you get them to realize that that's $80 billion a year that we wouldn't have to spend on the domestic spying program. And Tennessee, brand new data warehouse. It's 6 football fields long. It's 4 football fields wide, filled with the latest state-of-the-art. I mean, this is candy for me and people in my industry. We love it, right? Working with this equipment, having this capability is fantastic. But it's just replicating data that already exists, and it's a waste of our money to do so.
I've had a lot of whistleblowers, people who've been known in past incidents, who came to me last year at my show claiming that every phone call Americans have made on a cell phone has been recorded and is sitting on Terra Drive somewhere in Utah.
Yep.
Do you?
Well, it doesn't fit. Utah's too small, so the new one in Tennessee.
So you feel that tech companies can manage this data better than government?
Oh, they do a fantastic job. I mean, Facebook just came out with a huge summary of your life on Facebook, put it to music. It was fantastic. Well, I reviewed mine, and a lot of the stuff that came out, it got a lot of hits, and it was valuable So Facebook thought, well, I went back and I downgraded it on my own page and then clicked the button and it remade my video and made it better. So yeah, you're going to get instant information, instant updates from Twitter, on your tweets. You're going to know what's going on in real time. And it's ridiculous to take that data out of there and put it in another location. And you lose integrity of that data immediately. Keeping track of the data in its original form is the only way to go. You're going to get current updates. You're going to find out exactly who's doing whatever you don't want them to do.
Isn't it already a combination of government and the private sector managing all this data? That was what people, made a fuss about with Edward Snowden in the first place.
No, there's a definite, it's a feed. So once the government takes a hold of it, the expertise that you have in the high-tech companies is lost, and the expertise in the high-tech companies is the best. Well, take Edward Snowden, for example. Not really qualified to get paid $200,000 a year. He's a great guy, he's done good things. Well, I don't know, it depends. That is the one and only thing that our Democratic leader was booed for last year at Netroots Nation. It came out in a big deal, oh, she got booed, she got booed. Only that, saying that Edward Snowden is a criminal. She got booed. The rest of it, everybody's very happy with everything she's doing. So that was really interesting. Netroots Nation was in San Jose, which was lovely. Usually you have to go to some remote place to catch that show.
You said something very interesting backstage. You said that you are not running against Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah, in many ways I'm really not. I'm running against the rest of Congress, the Republicans that she has to compromise with, the Republicans that she has to capitulate to. I mean, there's nothing on my legislative agenda that she disagrees with. There's nothing on my legislative agenda that's not in the California Democratic Party platform. In fact, that's where I took a lot of this information. I just changed the words, I'm for peace. Well, okay, how do you want to get to peace? Step one, slice the incentive out. You take the incentive for war out and, what the heck? I mean, you talk to the employees and, I'm making cluster bombs, I'm making Sikorsky helicopters, I'm making M1 Abrams tanks. Hey, I go to work every day, I'm really good at my job, I make good money, that's great. But if this went away and I did something else, make iPhones, they're totally happy, they don't care.
I feel like this keeps coming back to Eisenhower, and you're talking about exactly what Eisenhower warned us in his farewell address about the military-industrial complex.
Oh yeah, yeah. Boy, he was the first president that it started, the tail was wagging the dog and it was forced on him, and it was a rare privilege that he shared with America. Very unusual.
What's it like for you on the campaign trail?
Huge variety of responses from people. It's, I guess a little bit of, who are you? What's this about? Why are you knocking on my door? What are you selling me? That kind of thing. And just, a wide range, really wide range.
I have some responses that your team members have received from when you've knocked on doors or rung intercoms that your campaign gave me that I'd like to just share really quick. These are actual things that people have said when David's campaign has knocked on the door for a real door-to-door grassroots Democratic campaign. You had a woman say, "Oh, now's not a good time, my husband's on the phone," to someone you called.
This was in person.
In person?
Yeah,
okay.
That was in person.
You had someone say, "Oh, so she can't come down because her husband's on the phone."
She was at the front door, holding the dog back, and now's not a good time, my husband's on the phone. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're the Democrat here in the household. I want to talk to you and your two Democratic daughters that are of college age, probably off to college. And it's like, well, what the heck? It just didn't make any sense. Why are you trying to defer me to your husband? He's not even on my list. He must be a Republican. And then afterwards I realized it's like, oh, I see. Usually people that come to the door are from the Republican Party and they only ask for your husband, so.
Someone said through the intercom, "I can't come down, I'm naked in the shower with the blow dryer." No, come down, I'll be right up. By the way, folks, electrical appliances, very dangerous in the shower.
There are a lot of intercoms in San Francisco. It's hard to reach out to people, very hard.
I like this one. "I can't talk right now, I've got company coming and I need to leave by 6:30. And then someone said, "Oh, I can't right now, the baby's in the microwave."
Now, this one I don't believe. This is, and again, you're terrifying me about ever doing door-to-door campaigning. But someone said, "I'm still voting for Leland Yee. He's so handsome." That was on this blog, right? Wow. I'm still voting for Leland Yee. He's so handsome. What's that?
No. Anna, you're up. You're up. That's your line.
Oh.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on.
Well, how do... It's the first time I've ever had someone tag out to a drag queen during my time on stage, by the way. How do voters that you survey feel overall?
They very much support the idea of taking the profit out of war profiteering. It's mixed on defunding domestic spying. We always ask the open-ended question, what would you like us to improve in Washington, D.C.? And the answer is overwhelmingly a lot. There's a lot we'd like change. Then when it comes down to specifics, people kind of lose ground a little bit, but when they do share specifics with us, absolutely. We engage them, we ask for their ideas, and from the campaign trail, I've pulled things from what individual voters have asked, and I've put it into my legislative action list. And it's some of it is just so straightforward. It's like, of course, why wouldn't we do this? And that's one thing that I've done is I've shaped this campaign in it's all legislative action. This is legislation that we should pass in Washington, D.C. That's the focus of the campaign. And it's different. Usually you just get candidates that just want to talk about, well, this is kind of a problem, and this is a problem. It's like, okay, what's your solution? Share your solution with me. That's what I want to know. And that's how I've changed this. And I've never seen anything like this. It's the same message on the website. It's the same in the handheld literature. It's the same in the voter information guide that comes out. And people are absolutely blown away, especially over the phone. We actually have a very intensive set of interview questions, and people are blown away. I mean, what's a war profiteer? I mean, what is that? And what is the domestic spying program? Which, my favorite story about the domestic spying program is, back in the day, we had Representative George Miller come to a peace rally, and we pulled out of retirement former Congress member Pete McCluskey. Mm-hmm. So the two of these guys are speaking at a park, open forum, and it's a peace rally, right? And we've got elected officials and candidates talking. Homeland Security showed up. This is back in the day when Homeland Security was really, really new. Afterwards, there was an article in the LA Times. The Homeland Security report was delivered to, at the time, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mm-hmm. And he and his attorney general are looking at the report. Okay, you guys went to this park, you reviewed and analyzed, everybody was there at this peace rally, and here's these two Congress members talking, and why are you reporting this to me? And so they chewed him out and they made it public. It was in the LA Times. It was hilarious. And they're like, why are we paying these salaries for these Homeland Security people? And this is back in the day when we had 59 in California. That was in the article. Now we're, at thousands. And, back then when Bush was picking them, it was, a friend of mine here, a friend of mine there. They had no idea what they were doing. They, they just went out and did political things.
I think it's amazing that half of America doesn't know what a domestic spying program is, but they've all seen the Solange Jay-Z hidden camera tape. And I'm glad she finally had a decent hit in her career, so that's good. Now, one thing I like is that you have, from what I understand, you are not going negative against Representative Pelosi. You're running a positive campaign. But let's, for example, give me an area where, how would you differ from her, say, on Syria policy and response to what happened in Syria?
It took a while to get Syria going. So one of the first things that we do is we send in a professional called an economic hitman. And the idea is to disrupt the economy. If you disrupt the economy, then that creates unrest among the people. So then that unrest can be translated into political unrest. So if that's successful, then you get the early news, which came out of Syria 3 years ago, was, this individual was killed in this neighborhood, and this individual was, arrested in this neighborhood. Just 1, 2, 3 people in a neighborhood here and there. And then the next step is to try and mobilize them and arm them. So we are it's a full-blown civil war. There are millions of women and children that have been blown out of their homes. They've escaped, and there's refugees that have gone to Iraq and Jordan and Turkey and Lebanon, the surrounding countries. And that's something that Americans, if they understood that we were doing that, they'd be upset about. If you ask people, how do you feel about the gasoline that we're throwing on that war fire? I mean, we are delivering weapons to Syria more, two times the volume of weapons that Li Lingyi wanted to purchase from the Philippines and sell to Raymond Shrimp Boy Chow, a local gangster in our neighborhood. That amount of weapons is twice a month is going into Syria just to keep them armed. And Saudi Arabia wants to up the ante. They want them to have the shoulder-fired rockets that can take down planes. Well, that'll take out Assad's air force, but it can also be shot at a commercial plane as well with civilians on board. So not a very good idea. War profiteers are very enthusiastic about that because this is a product that they're not selling into the war now. So the Saudis have offered to make the purchase because all the other weapons that we're delivering, for the most part, we pay for it. The taxpayers pay for it. It's that big line item on your deduction, federal tax withholding. That's what pays for the delivery of weapons to Syria. So they want a regime change. Okay, you want a regime change. That's Assad. He's a bad guy. Okay, I agree. And chemical weapons. Somebody used chemical weapons. And when that happened last September, that was a big deal. What are we going to do about it? Well, who's jumping up and down as a shill for the war profiteers screaming, hey, I want boots on the ground, let's invade, U.S. troops, we get another 10-year war here. That's a bad thing. And the president was trying a diplomatic approach, and that was undermining his efforts. So President Obama came up with, hey, let's just take all the chemical weapons away from them. Great idea. So last I read, we're at between 2/3 and 3/4 of those chemical weapons have been removed, which is fantastic. It's a good thing. The United States, us taxpayers, will pay to decommission those weapons and destroy them and make them safe. And that's the right type of approach. And then as far as taking out Assad, if taking out Assad is an absolute necessity, well, I prefer your campaign, which you've been one of the leaders in taking out the owner of the LA Clippers. I think that's the right way to go about it. I mean, he's going to lose ownership of the LA Clippers. Unfortunately, he's going to get paid to lose the LA Clippers.
You mean like a discrediting him among
yeah,
his loyalists? Yeah.
So I think you've done great on that. You've been a huge leader in that. You had a whole series on Twitter recently. I couldn't stop laughing. It's hilarious. Well, I mean, I don't even want to mention the guy's name, but okay, he is a racist. He shouldn't own a basketball team or anything else. And that's the way to get rid of him. And if we could get rid of Assad the same way, I think that would be great. I think that the example that was created in South Africa, overturning apartheid, is a great way to overturn the leadership of a nation.
Shame.
Yeah.
I gotta say, but Donald Sterling, by the way, makes me ashamed to be a racist billionaire. Really, he's ruined it for the rest of us.
But the thing is we don't pursue that route because it's not profitable. Right. We didn't make any money with the regime change in South Africa. And that's a problem for a lot of people that make money pushing regime changes.
So you've got John McCain jumping up and down saying we have to have boots on the ground in Syria.
Yep.
And John McCain's been into feeding the war machine ever since he began his career by crashing a lot of Navy planes.
Yeah. He's one of the oldest shills for the war profiteers, definitely.
So back to the voters' overall sentiments, as you said, many are very nonchalant about the domestic spying program.
Sure.
Should progressives and conservatives who care about the future of the country be horrified by this?
Yeah,
it does
they
seem
should.
One of the few areas where you've got the true conservatives and the true liberals finding common ground.
Oh yeah, but the thing about it is, it really comes down to what has meaning and value to voters, and we don't necessarily vote based on what goes on in Washington, D.C. We don't really pay attention to what goes on in Washington, D.C. There's a select few that watch this show, that show, but for the most part, we choose our elected officials based on popularity.
So then let's bring it back to your campaign. If the voters in this district in San Francisco say, well, I'm still voting for Representative Pelosi, but I'd like to support the legislative changes you propose, but I'm voting for her anyway, what should they do?
What we do is we ask them, and this is actually, some people will share that, say, I just, I carpooled with Nancy, I have to vote for her. Say, well, do you like any of these ideas? If so, please call our office. We give them the phone number, ask for Dan Burnell, he's a great guy, I love him, and ask them to do what we want. In fact, the organizations like Credo and Change.org, they have petitioning that's highly effective. So, and Credo will follow it up with an office visit. And we got our Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, to come around on the fast track of TPP. It's a huge victory. So, and huge accolades. Everybody puts it up on their website. Nancy Pelosi joins Harry Reid, not gonna fast track TPP, which is, if you guys don't know, it's the NAFTA for the Trans-Pacific. So, should we fast track it and just sign it into law? No, everybody should read it, everybody should know what's in it, and then we should talk about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Just like my girlfriend Elizabeth Warren says. She's a MILF, a mom I'd like to vote for. So okay, so what about, I guess challenging is a polite term for the candidacy you're doing. I realize it's uphill, and do you take requests for legislative improvements from the voters you meet when you're knocking on doors?
Yeah.
Do you learn stuff? Do you take ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. You want the whole story?
What? Sure.
Nice gentleman hanging out in Hayes Valley Park, and I'm gathering signatures, and he's telling me a story about his sister, who is at the state penitentiary in Santa Rita in Pleasanton. She was abused as a child. She was in a serious injury 6-7 years ago, had suffered brain damage, and she never had good health care, so she drank alcohol to deal with the pain, and she stole alcohol. And she was arrested for it once, twice, 3 times, and they finally just threw her in there and locked her up. And that's ridiculous, because my wife is a medical social worker, and she has patients who have suffered far worse injuries. Motorcycle victims, they roll down the freeway and get run over by a truck, broken arms, limbs, and they rehabilitate them. And we get that in America. In the United States, if you are dramatically injured, mentally, physically, you can be rehabilitated. You may not play the violin the way you did before, you may not play the piano the way you did before, you may not even get the same job you had before, but they do everything for these people, and she gets them from in the hospital for 6 months straight, physical therapy, occupational therapy, back to livable, productive lives. But if you don't have health insurance, you're out.
And if you're an addict, you're not treated as it's a disease. We lock up 6 people.
Yep.
So we're talking about the #1 growth industry in America next to tattoo removal, prison industrial complex.
Exactly. And that's the alternative. And the fact is, the amount of money that the healthcare service provider that my wife works for, the amount of money they spend to rehabilitate any of their patients is minuscule compared to what we pay out of our taxes for the prison industrial complex. It's $60 grand a year. And Mark DeSaulnier, senator here in Northern California, has given speeches about leading the way and fighting against the prison industrial complex. But when it comes to writing legislation, signing legislation, and getting voters to support him with a movement, he drops the ball. And that's where we need to pick it up. That's where the voters need to pick it up and engage what our elected officials do. And we don't. We don't engage them. We don't follow what they do. We don't sign petitions. I mean, the average voter in California, and it's probably worse in San Francisco, they'll vote, and they say they've done their civic duty, and spend the rest of the year trying to get out of jury duty. And they consider themselves an active, informed citizen.
Right. You're right.
And
why are petitions so important? Because most people hear petitions and they think, that's the guy in the Whole Foods parking lot I have to avoid with the clipboard.
That's right. And the answer is, if we don't sign petitions, who's going to tell our elected officials what to do? The nefarious underworld folks like Raymond Shrimp Chow. And that's the thing that kills me is all the voters want to be surprised about that. What are you kidding me? He's infamous. For years and years ago, he was selling preschool seats at the local school. It's like, what? He changes his address, gets his own kids in, and then he gets other kids into the school by selling them to people. It was known that he was corrupt. So the truth is out there before it comes out on the news for 6 weeks straight that he's, they've FBI followed him around, taped him. I mean, you just read the indictment of all the quotes that come from him. It's hilarious. I mean, it's true political comedy. I mean, he's making plans for what's going to happen when he gets to the Secretary of State position because he gets to control the vote. It's unbelievable. And people are surprised, and voters don't take responsibility for it. It's like, come on. If you hired a dentist, if you hired an auto mechanic, if you hired a plumber, and they screwed up the job, would you rubber stamp them back into office? No, but we do. If your dentist pulled the wrong tooth, you wouldn't go back to the same dentist. If your auto mechanic didn't fix your car, you wouldn't go back to him. If your plumber, you're trying to steer him to the bathroom where you've got problems and he's running into the kitchen because he doesn't want to, it's like, I got the problem. You would not hire him again, right? But with our elected officials, we don't even think twice. Are we happy that Glass-Steagall was approved? No, nobody is. Yeah, Glass-Steagall was repealed in the 90s by 75% of the people that co-sponsored that legislation are still in office. President Clinton signed it, and it was all part of the deregulation movement, which is, oh, that's really good, deregulation, just what we need, more Wall Street financial schemes. And they pulled off a doozy. I mean, it literally nearly brought the country down, and we're still paying for it. I mean, there's a lot of officials in the Treasury that are being harassed for making a $500 billion loan to Australia. How do you explain yourself? I guess this was Bernanke or one of these guys. Explain yourself. Why are you doing this? It's like, well, we had to pay them back because we sold them all this junk finance and we owe it to them. So now we have to loan them free money. And guess what? It's not free money. We have to pay for it. And the thing about the Wall Street financial scheme is it's not complicated. You get on Fox News and it's complicated. That's high finance. It's simple. They ripped us off. Everybody. If you're a renter, if you've never owned real estate in your life, you got screwed. That's the true trickle down. The entire economy was wiped. You've lost buying power. You've lost earning power. And it's the one slice that Occupy Wall Street's got right. They ripped us off. It's simple. It's basic. After that, they got nothing right. They don't even vote.
You support equal rights, including gay marriage?
Yes.
Have you ever been gay married?
No.
Have you ever been proposed to get gay married by someone?
No.
No.
I am married.
Oh, so you have an excuse. Heterosexual privilege. That's what that is.
No.
Have you attended an LGBT wedding?
I have never been invited. I would love to. I have been working for equality for a long time.
So you're
don't
gay
ask,
wedding
don't tell.
curious.
Yeah.
So you try it. If it was offered to you, you'd try some.
Yes. Actually, family members have had a really rough time coming out, getting married. They live in the Midwest, and their dad's Archie Bunker, their uncle's Archie Bunker, their brothers are Archie Bunker, and nobody was going to go to their wedding. And I said, listen, let me help you out. Invite grandma. Put the rest of the family to shame. Great grandma. When great grandma shows up at your wedding, the rest of them will fall in line. And they did, They're showing up. And it was great because it was a goth wedding in a cemetery.
A goth gay wedding in a cemetery.
Exactly.
What else? That's what great grandmas were made for. Well, there you have it. Invite your local officials to your LGBT wedding and make sure they come. Now, okay, when you say you support labor, investors, and pensioners together versus fraud and corruption, what does that mean?
This one is complicated. What labor doesn't realize, what investors don't realize, and what pensioners don't realize is how they gave it up. They let themselves be ripped off. What they gave up was ownership. And probably the people that work in a union in construction would probably understand the best, because if you work for a big firm and you're in a union in construction, and then all of a sudden you want to go independent, you do. You go independent, you work for yourself, and sometimes you have to drop the union thing, but you take ownership and you invest more in your work every day, you manage the whole business from top to bottom, and you manage the performance of that business. When we give up ownership as employees in a labor union, as an investor, if you only buy a mutual fund, the number one thing when you give it up is the approval for executive compensation. So executive compensation is now determined by the CEO in every single organization. The board of directors, forget about it. They're paid patsies.
I can see how the shareholders, if they got their act together, could have a say in what executive compensation could be. But how could labor have a say in what executive compensation could be?
Liaison. Talk to them. Was it the movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas and Charlie Sheen? It's that easy. Talk to them.
And I'm sure they'll listen, because that's what the Koch brothers do.
You know, the Koch brothers, the Don't Buy Koch brothers products, that boycott, they need to get their act together.
Well, of course, but you know, like Socrates said that a man should not be paid more than 5 times what his employee makes, and J.P. Morgan upped it to 20 times.
Yeah.
And now in America, it's over 400 times
Yeah.
what a CEO makes what their employees make.
And so,
how do you stop that?
well, this is actually what I do for a living. I build accountability systems. So, you know, way back when Jack Welch created the phrase, we're not going to have any product, any business line that we don't have a 20% margin on. I've got clients in the software industry and the hardware industry, forget 20%, they're looking at 40, 50, 60% margins. So when you analyze your business and markets you want to be in, you get rid of the low performers, you sell them off. When you analyze your individual assets, this factory, that product line, you analyze them individually and then as a group. Well, the one asset in every single organization in the United States that's extremely underperforming is the CEO. Extremely underperforming. The amount of money that's invested is never returned. In fact, you could eliminate a CEO and not see a negative impact on the bottom line. I mean, I just have to throw it out there. First one that comes to mind is Yahoo.
Yeah.
They could eliminate that CEO and it would not have a negative effect on the bottom line. They could fly without that one.
Do the voters you talk to in San Francisco unanimously support your very green agenda?
Oh yeah, I mean...
it seems like a pretty cool city for that.
It is. There's a local initiative, the Clean Power San Francisco, that's kind of not really getting off the ground, and I'd like to, you know, create something big. You know, in Denmark, in northern Germany, in Scotland, I mean, they've moved to massive amounts of wind energy, and the wind's blowing by and we're letting that energy go. There's significant solar in San Francisco. Solar's done well, but wind, it's like, why not?
You have not gone negative with your campaign. And
That's
I
correct.
mentioned that earlier. And you had a really great idea, which was publish all lobbyist requests.
Wouldn't that
Can
be
you explain
sweet?
that?
Well, the lobbyists, you know, drive dramatically. They drive what goes on in Washington, D.C., and the incumbents are highly motivated and responsive to what they do. That's where the money's coming from. So publishing what they ask for would just be novel. I mean, just think of one single lobbyist, one company, and what they're asking for. You know, what if we all knew that? What if it was public information? You know, why are you so motivated to pay these fees for what you do?
But would Goldman Sachs come out and actually say, we want to slam every mortgage request for the next 5 years? I mean, could you ever get companies to do that?
No, I don't think they'd want to. I mean, you have to start somewhere and start talking about it, get the idea out there.
But if voters could see the requests in advance, they'd have a better sense of who was pushing their democracy around.
Absolutely. And well, in that case of the mortgage market scam, I mean, people would know. I mean, you'd get two groups of people. One that would just absolutely avoid. I mean, why would you want a 30-year mortgage with, a nice decent rate, and the mortgage company says, no, you don't qualify. You have to get this mortgage at 17% and a balloon payment in 3 years. And you're like, well, what the hell is that? So most people would back off if they see that. But then you also get the people that see that, the appraisers that were approving the massive increases in homes, they would just throw out the old rules. House prices are going up, and so people would jump in and start flipping. And that happened. I mean, I have friends and colleagues that did that type of thing, and it was interesting. It was a crazy way to stimulate the economy with crooks and thieves and scams, but we did it.
Now, you ran into some trouble with a local militia. I didn't know they had militias in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What happened? Can you say?
You're talking about the Black Panthers.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we went to an event at the Unitarian Universalist Church. A famous peace activist, Kathy Kelly, was speaking. And then after that, some folks said, hey, you have to go to this other event and meet everybody. And we get there, and it was urban farming. That was the event. It was a huge musical event, big crowd, big turnout. And they had, for security, the Black Panthers. And yeah, we got kicked out. I don't know why.
Sounds like Forrest Gump.
Exactly.
I'm sorry I ruined your Black Panther party.
Deja vu.
Wow. Okay.
It was hilarious.
Well, how do we end up with so many, Leland Yee is a name that we don't know in most of the country, but we all know our versions of Leland Yees. How do we end up with so many elected officials with illegal activity like Mr. Yee?
I don't know. Why do you say it that way, that we end up with so many?
Because this is one of the downsides of democracy, I guess. I mean, you've talked about it here tonight.
I don't know. You asked that question funny, and I don't get where you're going.
Oh, I just, why do you think we wind up with so many guys like this?
I guess it does go back to what I was saying earlier in terms of how we vote and how we evaluate our candidates and how we choose them. I guess maybe, you can blame our public school system, right? So, we're all taught to vote for student body president in high school. They have, absolutely no responsibility whatsoever. Mm-hmm. They have absolutely no authority whatsoever. So what criteria does an individual use to choose the student body president?
Popularity.
Yep. That's it. And that's what we do more than anything else. Every single voter in the United States chooses their elected officials based on popularity. Oh yeah, I know so-and-so.
So American elections are like when the most popular country in the world has a popularity contest.
Absolutely.
So the not-so-covert war to change leaders. I wanted to ask you about this phrase as well. The not-so-covert war in Syria to change leaders. We touched on it earlier, but before we do wrap, I want to ask you, how do you see this conflict playing out, and what is America's role in it going to be?
Same as Afghanistan and Iraq. Once the regime changes, then we make partnerships and alliances with the new regime.
So it's going to be
just projecting. I mean, that's a hard guess.
More strong men we bribe to be nice to us.
I suppose, yeah.
Well, regarding President Obama, I made the joke earlier, we wanted an FDR and kind of got a Clinton. But do you like the president?
He's done some things right, absolutely, and I do like him a lot, and there's a few things that, are questionable. I think when it comes to foreign policy, in terms of Libya, the aircraft taking people out, that was a little scary, but hey, you know what? The demand in Washington in the Beltway was boots on the ground, U.S. troops, another 10-year war. And the same could be said for Syria. The demand was U.S. troops, boots on the ground, another 10-year war. And Iran has been on deck forever. I mean, Ellen Towser wanted us to do a blockade back in 2008, and that was kind of nail in her coffin. Thank you very much. Iran's been on deck for that long, and if we actually invaded Iran, that would be a 15-year war. And of course, they're salivating like crazy over the Ukraine, right? The war profiteers would love to have wars in all of those locations.
Before we do wrap up, I want to say how much I enjoyed introducing you with your slogan, ask not what the government can do for you, tell the government what to do for you. Do you have any final thoughts on your campaign or final messages you'd like to share?
Well, just that piece itself, in terms of telling the government what to do, that it's in the Constitution. We are to petition our government with our redresses. And, you know, in this day and age especially, you want to draw back from that. You don't want to sign any petitions. You don't want the junk email. You don't want the phone calls and all that kind of thing. But if we don't tell them what to do, you know, it's just going to be left to the lobbyists, the Koch brothers, and, you know, Shrimp Boy Chow.
What are your hopes and goals for this campaign, and why is 16 the magic number? I
don't know. We shouldn't go there.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, what are your hopes and goals for the campaign?
It would be great to get second place, and it would be amazing if the Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, said, I don't support war profiteers. That would be amazing. That would be a huge hope and dream. Defunding domestic spying, a lot of the local clubs just beat up Dianne Feinstein with that. There's a big shame on Feinstein thing. And she's famous because she loves the domestic spying program. She leads the Intelligence Committee in the Senate. And then she got all pissed off at them when they spied on her team. So that's irresistible. But what we need to realize is that when we do petitioning, it needs to be all of us, because Congress is a reactionary body. Congress does not lead. It's ironic, and it's a shell that the media portrays to all of us, that we have leaders in Washington, D.C. It's false. It's never been true. They wait until the majority comes around to a new way of thinking, and then they react to it.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to thank all of you. I don't do this sort of thing very often, and I always like to say that this country has never been about conservative versus liberal. It's always been about aristocracy versus democracy. And I think what you're doing is great for democracy, and that's what I believe in, and it's really a pleasure to sit here and talk to you and learn more about the campaign, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Peterson, the man who wants to take the profit out of war profiteering. Thank you very much. It's like the end of a debate.
But you didn't argue with me.
No, I did not, no. But thank you. And
I expected you to roast me more. I was just sweating under the collar waiting for you to really chew on me.
No,